Mobile games have a reputation of being absolutely terrible. They're usually a developer's first game or an absolute cash grab, which in turn has become the most frowned upon genre in gaming. How are board games better than you? But throughout the universe of garbage that is app stores, there are exceptions. Games that have devs that actually care about what they put out, or at least one's competent to know that quality equals profit. Pixel Gun 3D was one of those exceptions. I'm sure most of you watching this have played or at least heard of the game at one point in your life. It's a first-person shooter that got popular due to its Minecraft-style design and heavy references of media. And for a while, it was actually one of the biggest mobile games ever. Despite its flaws and debatable mechanics, this game was really enjoyable. And I'm sure for many people watching this, it was a part of their childhood. But as it got bigger and bigger, it would do what every other game has done. Become significantly worse for no reason. This game has become a shell of its former self, and there's just so many issues that it has now. And after this, you'll see why Pixel Gun is the worst mobile game ever. Pixel Gun has a level system, just like most games in its genre, and over the years they've increased it little by little to give players who are at the top something to work for. Now you might think, this isn't bad, it seems pretty normal. The issue with this is that it's super unnecessary. As early as I can remember, the max level was 36, then 45, then 55, and now 65. I don't know why they decided to make these small leaps in levels. They could have just stuck it at 65 and let everybody grind. Even so, why is the max level 65? Why not just stick it at 100? You're inevitably gonna have players who max out their levels. There's no reason to constantly give them something to do since they're gonna be on your game regardless. And now you may think this isn't as big of an issue, but there is another reason that's way worse. Pixel Gun changed their upgrade system, in which I'll talk more in depth about later on in the video. So the way it was at the time and how it is now is that your weapon started off at a certain level, and you could either spend coins to upgrade it one level at a time or spend gems to skip to your current level. For example, if I had the turbo pistols and they were at level 16, I could either spend coins to bring it from 16 to 28 individually, or I can use gems and bring it from 16 to 28 instantly. The reason why this is an issue is because every time they bumped up the level cap, I would have to upgrade my weapons all the way to the current level. I said this in my previous video, but 3 days after I hit level 55, which was the current max level at the time, they dropped level 65. So all the time I put in to get there didn't matter as much anymore. This is even worse for new players since they have so many levels to reach. This level system wouldn't be much of an issue if the weapons weren't tied to it, but because they are, we have to spend so much time earning coins and gems so we can upgrade our weapons. Maps are a big part of Pixel Gun, as they are with any other game, and they've made some very cool and memorable maps, like Pool Party and Silent School and Two Castles. But as they made more and more maps, a lot of the older ones got used less and less, which eventually caused the devs to remove some of those maps. Now, I'm not here to say we should get rid of the new maps because you should be able to like what you like, but to remove the old maps that people once loved doesn't seem like a great move. They actually had a way to deal with this 4 years ago, where maps were set on a set timer, and about every 2 hours or so, the maps would switch. And I thought that was the perfect idea. The devs didn't have to get rid of a lot of their hard work, and everybody got what they wanted. And if your map wasn't available right now, then just don't play the game. Your time could be spent a lot better doing something else anyways. But for some reason, they decided to remove it shortly after. Now we're back to the issue of so many maps in the game that aren't being used. Also, a lot of the old maps got reworked, which nobody asked for. And yes, they look kind of cool, but what's so nostalgic about the old maps is the way they looked. They may not have been great in terms of quality, but they had a lot of charm. And by taking that out, you essentially ruined the reason it was popular in the first place. Also, why does Silent School have no music anymore? Weapons are honestly the biggest issue in this game. There are currently 1,327 weapons in the game, and over 600 of them are mythical. Keep that in the back of your mind. And some of them are incredibly overpowered. Overpowering is an issue in every game, but I feel like Pixel Gun deals with it the worst. They'll introduce a broken weapon, make it extremely hard to get in the battle pass, and after a little while, completely kill its viability, then release it to everybody else. That has been their way of handling it ever since they introduced the battle pass, and no matter how many people complain, they just won't listen. There are currently so many overpowered weapons right now, it's hard to keep track. At the moment, snipers and heavies consist of the most overpowered weapons in the game. Weapons like the Harsh Punisher, Fusion, Deceitful Cheater, Anti-Champion Rifle, Spiky Mortar, Dislike, Pasta Sniper Rifle, Anniversary Anti-Champion Rifle, Experimental Rifle, and so many others. Or even some broken melees like the Bloody Terror Axe and the Temple Claws and the Combat Knife. But the most broken weapon of all is the Ultimatum. I absolutely hate this weapon. It one-shots any anything and everything from most distances. It shoots through walls and has absolutely no counter. And the worst part of it all is that the devs embrace it. They stated a few years ago that the ultimatum would never return. It did. Many times. They understand how broken the weapon is and continue to release it while also not doing anything to fix it. The ultimatum is the golden goose of Pixel Gun 3D, and at this point there's no hope that they're ever gonna fix it. Nerfing weapons is just as important as breaking them, and I'm not kidding when I say a third of the weapons in Pixel Gun are completely unusable. Weapons that were once really powerful like the ferocious poleaxe, luxury beats, and hyper mega cannon are now nowhere to be seen in matches. And while yes, they were absolutely broken in their prime, there was no reason to make the weapon absolutely irrelevant. You can still nerf a weapon while properly balancing it. Just look at cases like the Invincible Lion and the Bedivere. It's super annoying when all we ask for is a slight decrease in power and they go too far. Armor has been heavily impacted by nerfing. At first, armor was really simple. There was the weakest armor and then the strongest. Now there's so many different types of armor. Inflatable armor? Advanced scout armor? What's this space armor? Dev armor? What is going on? While these armors are cool, they completely overshadow the previous armors, and due to changing the armor system and not updating the old ones, now they're completely useless. If these different types of armors were just skins that had unique effects, that would be a lot better. But by making them their own separate armor, there's no reason to get the older ones. In fact, the older armors are just skins now, but they're not? And now the event armors are also skins? But you need to own the actual armor in order to have it? This makes no sense. Pixel Gun has a habit of implementing new systems and not removing the old ones. You'll see that a lot more in this video. The armor system is completely screwed, and I don't think the devs even know what they're doing. They also did this to some of the helmets too. The big contribution to the overpowering of weapons was modules. I hated modules from the start, and I'll continue to do so. For those who don't know, modules are used to make your weapon more powerful, but the issue is there's so many weapons that are unbalanced, so it may have a positive effect or none at all. I saw this as a poor excuse to not balance your weapons. Maybe if you didn't focus on releasing 15 weapons every month, you wouldn't have so many to balance. But the main issue with modules is that weapons that are already powerful are made even stronger. Dealing with the prime solar flare with level 10 modules was not a good time. In my opinion, modules need to be removed and the devs need to actually focus on balancing all of their weapons. Take a month to go through all 1300 of them and make proper adjustments. It's not like they can't, and if they can't, they should explain why. Reskins are more of an old issue in Pixel Gun, and while there's a couple that kind of are, it's not as prevalent as it was 7 years ago. At the time, Pixel Gun had a really big issue with using reskins. They would dish that out and consider it new content. Weapons like the Thunderer, Multitaskers, and Hurricane being really big examples. It was overall super lazy, and shame on the devs for doing that. Neglect is one of the biggest issues that I feel nobody talks about. Much as I explained earlier, there are so many mechanics and features that aren't removed when new ones are implemented. It's just a terrible experience overall, and it's probably a reason why the game is so big now. But it isn't just mechanics. Weapons, skins, and gadgets also suffer from this. Armory weapons suffering the most. Armory weapons are supposed to help new players as they work their way to the top, and so many of them haven't been balanced over the years that they just absolutely suck. Weapons like the plasma pistol, impulse sniper rifle, and Casanova are completely forgotten about now. Weapons like the Santa sword and dual Uzi aren't even there anymore. And there's no point in even using the semi-auto sniper rifle. They pump out way too many mythical and legendary weapons. In fact, that's all they put out now. Remember when I told you that 600 of their weapons were mythical? All they've released in the past 6 years are just mythical and legendary weapons. 2/3 of all the weapons in Pixel Gun are either mythical or legendary. The common weapons are more rare than the mythicals. Mythical weapons were supposed to be super hard to come by, not 85% of all your weapons. Now there's an overabundance of weapons that are supposed to be rare. This is what happens when you neglect the core aspects of your game. There should be a lot more armory weapons than there are right now. The fact that we haven't got any in 6 years is insane. There's no excuse for that. And there are still weapons that have crosshairs from 7 years ago. The devs aren't tweaking their game. They're just releasing stuff and moving on to the next thing. I'm genuinely curious how worse the game can get from this point. Also, miniguns are completely useless. Giving them a startup is completely useless when I can get one-tapped by most weapons in the game. If anything, give them a cooldown instead. Absolutely nobody uses miniguns, and that's why. The currency in this game is almost as big as an issue as the weapons. There's so many things wrong with it. The microtransactions in this game are absolutely awful. It's just a bunch of overpriced crap. For some reason, everything is 30% off when it actually isn't. Microtransactions are generally garbage, but this game charges you out the anus for peanuts. Not only that, everything is overpriced. Weapons, cosmetics, and chests all cost an arm and a leg. Why are weapons worth 2,000 7 coins, but I'm only getting 4 coins a match if I do good. 600 gems for a weapon? I miss when the Stormhammer was the most expensive weapon in the game, costing a whopping 700 coins. It ain't much now, but back then, you were that player, especially since currency was hard to come by then as well. Which brings me to the lack of rewards you get from matches. It's not as bad as before, where if you lost, you wouldn't get anything at all, and you would lose trophies, but it hasn't improved much since. I think the lowest you can get is about 1 or 2 coins, and the highest you can get is 4 to 6, which really isn't a lot. I know there's a lot more way to get coins and gems with like battle passes and chests and stuff, but I think the average amount you get per match should be increased a little bit. Battle pass is one of the worst things to ever reach any game. It's just a pay to win system that allows devs to make a lot of money. Now, battle passes can be done right, and honestly, Pixel Guns was one of the best I've seen. But the issue wasn't so much that they had one, it's that this is their main source of content. And yes, they have the lotteries and stuff, but that shouldn't be the only thing they have. There should be more features and armory weapons and gadgets. A free-to-play experience is just not favored anymore, and it's absolutely ignored all the time because, ooh, profit. Some may not see an issue with it, but then you fail to understand how it used to be. Games used to be focused on the experience of the player, and they tried to make it as fulfilling as possible. Now they're just focused on getting as much money as they can out of you. Instead of rewarding you for your long grind, they try to make it as hard as possible, and give as little as they can so you'll keep going if you didn't get what you want. Devs are just lazy now. They're not adding new features, they're not removing the ones that aren't viable, and they continuously push out new battle pass content so they can continue to get more and more money. And they wonder why they have another hacker problem. Not only will they have you grind for so long, they'll completely disregard it. With their battle pass system, they have a thing called a challenge weapon, where you do a specific amount of challenges and the reward is a weapon. After a little while, they'll just release the weapon for everybody else through the trader van or a chest, which is completely unfair. It's not like the challenges are simple either. They're incredibly hard. The people who work for those challenge weapons should be rewarded with the exclusivity of having it. If you're just gonna pop it in the trader van for 300 gems a month later, then there's no point. In my opinion, challenge weapons should never be reintroduced. It's not like you don't have enough weapons to show. Like the battle pass, the lottery systems are just as problematic. It's been a big part of the game for a long time, and I don't really mind it when it's not incredibly unfair. The chances of you actually getting something good is really, really low. Anybody who's played Pixel Gun for a while can tell you how rigged the system is. They'll put like a few good things in there and everything else is just garbage. There literally was a big complaint from the community that cosmetics and super chests were completely unfair since they were super hard to get, and the devs knew that, but decided to double down on why they put cosmetics and super chests. They thought it would balance the rewards. Spending 8 hours a day on your game only to get a skin you'll never use is peak balancing. Great job, Pixel Gun. Totally do what you want and not listen to your community at all. Don't even get me started on their new roulette system. It's completely pay to play. The old system had you spin to unlock a reward, and the more rewards you earned, the more expensive it got. With enough gems, eventually you could get all rewards available. Now they have a bunch of rewards you can get, and if you click on the weapon, you can get the full weapon instead of the parts, but you have to pay a crazy amount of gems for each reward. I'm not spending 100 gems on each reward only to get 500 coins back. And not only that, since their old system gave you weapon parts, if you have any weapons that you only need a few parts for, well, you're just out of luck. You could finish them in the shop, but they only recycle about 6 of them at a time, so you have to buy those in order to get to the other ones. But other than that, you either use the new system or you buy coupons. But if you have 249 out of 250 parts, that doesn't make sense. Thanks for not dealing with that at all, Pixel Gun. Absolutely amazing. They combined all their brain power to make one brain cell to come up with that idea. I swear, these are some of the dumbest developers in history. The clan system pretty much sucks. Your fort is useless now unless you do clan raids. The fort parts are so freaking overpriced, and everything takes forever to craft. Not only that, most of the original clan weapons aren't that great anymore. The golden ones are decent, and the crystal ones are absolutely broken. Other than those weapons, there's no reason to actually join a clan. And for the ones that give a lot of rewards, they pretty much expect you to have no life. Also, I was a member of Blackout. If you know, you know. Clans used to be exciting and worth joining. Now they're really not worth much if you don't put a lot of time into the game. And I mean a lot of time. And you shouldn't have to use a random fort in Fort Siege. Just choose a random one from your teammates like you used to be able to do. I genuinely don't understand what goes through these people's minds. Pixel Gun used to be great, and it sucks that throughout most of its life, it's been seen as bad. Minor changes becoming major adjustments, huge issues being completely neglected, like not having an Are You Sure button after 11 years of existence, and completely broken and unbalanced weapons are just a few of many reasons as to why the game sucks. What's even more annoying about it is that it's not like the devs can't do anything about it, they just just choose not to. Nor do they listen to the community whatsoever. If that was the case, you might as well not have made that big revelation in 2018. All you did was just give us a void to scream into. It really sucks to see the game like this, but honestly, I'm not surprised. I don't know if it'll ever change, but for now, if you can, I encourage you to play the older updates. You can really get a feel of what Pixel Gun was like back then, when things were more fun and made more sense. You didn't have all these crazy modules and overpriced items. You just had a game that was really fun to play. And since it's been a year since I made my last video on it and it's only gotten worse, I have no hope for this game. I don't think it'll die out because there are too many kids that like the game now that don't understand what it was like back then. But unless they get their act together, I will see them as the game that was only great when I was younger. I want to try something a little long form for once. I also have socials if you want to follow all of those. And if you were or are a player of Pixel Gun, then let me know how it is for you. At the end of the day, this is just how I feel about it, and I could be wrong. But I'm officially done with this game. I can't take it anymore. I've been done for a while, but I may check in on it every now and then. But as far as playing the game, even for fun, I don't think that's gonna happen. But hey, that's just how it is.